Hi, and welcome back to Wandering Wild. It's day 3 of our basics week here on Wandering Wild. So today we're going to talk all about sign, like scat, choose, rubs, tracks, things like that. And then next week, we're going to go on a little hike together. So hopefully you'll get to apply some of what you've learned. And if not, maybe you'll just find it interesting. So stay tuned and I hope you enjoy it. Okay, now I have split sign like this into 4 basic categories, okay? So I think that it's simpler to remember that way. So category 1, tracks. Category 2, choose and rubs. Category 3, things they build. And category 4, things they leave behind. So this video is going to be split into those 4 sections, and we're going to go through and let's get started. Okay, so category 1, tracks. Now, we've all probably seen a track from time to time. Even if it was someone's footprint, that is a track. Now, when you look at a track, you're going to want to do some basic things. First, determine mammal, bird, reptile, amphibian. We're not going to worry about reptiles and amphibians here because to me, I think they're actually very hard to tell apart. And I'm not going to teach you how to do something that I'm not very good at myself. Plus, you rarely see those tracks. Now, mammal or bird. The way you would look at these is you're going to either see kind of like a paw print or a hoof print, which would be mammal, or you may see kind of a forked toe print. That's going to be your bird. Now, we're going to start with birds. The main birds that you're probably going to see is herons, shorebirds, turkeys, or ducks and geese. Now, a heron or a duck or a goose, they're going to be found mostly by a lake or a river or a stream. If you see a heron, you can't mistake it. It's huge. It's going to be at least the size of your hand. It's going to have 3 toes in the front and 1 toe, called a hallux, to the back. Next, if you see a duck or a goose print, it's going to have those 3 toes that are webbed. So that's kind of going to be your basic giveaway. Now, it's very hard to tell the different species of duck and goose apart just by looking at their track, but you do know that a goose track is going to be slightly larger. Now, when you look for a turkey track, it actually has toe pads. So they're going to kind of be some texture to the track. And you're going to have 3 toes to the front with claw marks, and then kind of their paw pad, which is this small circle behind their toes. And that's how you know you're looking at a turkey track. Those are your birds that you're more than likely going to see looking at tracks. And so that's all we're going to focus on here. Next, if you see a mammal track. So if you see a mammal track, you're going to want to determine first if it's large, small, so you're going to want to measure it. You're going to want to look at size. If it's 2 or more inches, you're either looking at a large animal like a cat or a dog. Now, if it's less than that, you're going to be looking at smaller animals like squirrels, raccoons, possums, things of the like. So let's start with those tracks that are greater than 2 inches. Now these tracks are either going to be from a cat or a dog. The way you would tell this apart is that a cat's track is usually wider than it is tall, and there's going to be no claw marks because they have retractable claws. Now, if it's a dog, it's going to be longer than it is wide, and it's probably going to have claw marks because they don't have retractable claws. Now, say we're looking at a cat track. Now, how do we know if it's a domestic cat, a bobcat, or a cougar? Now, cougar, that's easy. It's at least 4 inches wide. Nothing else is going to be that large. Next, bobcat and a house cat. They're going to be right around 2 inches wide. And they're very hard to tell apart from each other because they're virtually the same paw print. Now, the bobcat's paw print is a little bit larger, but on a whole, you really can't tell the 2 apart. Now, what if you're looking at a dog's paw print? First off, if it's a wolf's paw print, it's 5 inches tall. Done. Can't mistake it. Now, if it's a coyote or a domestic dog. So first let's talk about the difference between wild dog and domestic dog paw. Hey guys, so I'm muting myself basically in this video because I realized that I said something backwards when I was filming, so I just wanted to set the record straight here. When I was explaining the difference between a domestic dog and a coyote's track, I basically just said it backwards. So a domestic dog has a wider, more splayed foot, whereas a coyote's track is more drawn together and it's almost round in shape. You can kind of see it in this picture. I said that backwards. Now, back to what I was saying. The next thing you can look at is if you have an actual series of tracks. If it's kind of like going in random motions from here to there, kind of loopy, that's a domestic dog. No mistaking it. A coyote or a wolf, they're going to walk in a straight path with determination. They have a destination in mind. That's your difference. Wild dogs don't have the leisure of a domestic dog. So if you have a series of tracks, that's really a great way to tell if you're looking at domestic or wild. Now, let's look at some of the smaller than 2 inches tracks. So this is going to be something like the raccoon track that we saw before. Now, you may want to count their toes. And if you have a front and a back track, that's actually really, really helpful. But you're not always going to get that. Let's remember that the wild is not as perfect as these prints you're seeing right here beside me, because the ground, the temperature, if it's rained since it happened, that's all going to determine how good your track is. So let's count toes. Now, if an animal has 5 toes in the front and 5 toes in the back, it could be a raccoon. But the real way to determine if it's a raccoon track is it's going to have longer fingers or toes, and it's going to look like a hand. Now, if your track has 4 toes on the front foot and 5 on the back foot, it's more than likely a squirrel. But keep in mind that often that back foot tends to get in front of the first foot when they're walking. Next is a possum. Possums have 5 toes in the front, 5 toes in the back. However, they also have an opposable thumb that comes off the foot at a 90-degree angle, and a lot of times you can even see the joint in the track. So this is a really distinguishing factor. You know you're looking at a possum track. Now, what if you're looking at a rabbit track? They're actually pretty easy. You're going to be able to see that big back foot and a small, more round front foot, and you usually can't distinguish toes. And a lot of times that back foot's also going to get in the front foot, just like with the squirrel. Now, the last animal's track that we're probably going to see, we've actually seen before, and it's a white-tailed deer. You're not going to count toes here. You're not going to look for paw pads because they're hooved animals. So you're going to see these 2 crescent-shaped marks beside each other. Deer also have 2 more kind of sections to their hooves in the back, but rarely do you see these in a track because it takes kind of like the perfect sand, mud, snow to really see that. So you're really just going to look for these front 2 markings. Now, question, what direction is this deer walking? Well, just know that he's always pointing where he wants to go. That's the trick I use to know that a deer is always walking in the direction that the point of their hoof is pointing. Okay, that's tracks. Let's get on to some chews and rubs. Often animals will chew on bark and trees and things to get to food or because it is their food. And some animals even rub against trees. So these are really good ways to tell if an animal's been nearby. Now, if you're looking at something that's been chewed on, you're really looking for 3 animals. 1, a rodent, like a rabbit. 2, a deer. And 3, a beaver. So let's start with beaver. That's the easiest one. If you see beaver work, it's usually coming to a point. So that beaver chewed through a tree to help build its dam while it came to a point. Next, you may be looking at a deer or a rabbit. Now, a rabbit will girdle a tree, which means it'll chew a section completely around the tree where they just eat the bark. Now, if it's a smaller tree, this can actually kill the tree, but on larger trees, they'll survive on. That's rabbit. Now, the next thing is twigs, saplings, things like that have been eaten. This is difficult because both deer and rabbits eat the same things. So how do you tell which one's been doing the work? We have a way of doing that. First off, if it was a rabbit or other rodent, they have front incisors that are very sharp. And if they were chewing on something, you're going to see 2 distinct grooves. But if they just bit something off, like a twig, you're going to see it's sharp, almost like something was cut with pruning shears, and it's going to be done at a 45-degree angle. Now, if a deer did this, they kind of just rip it off, and so it's torn in jagged edges. That's how you tell the difference between deer work and rabbit work. Now, in late summer, deer also are shedding their velvet, which is this covering of skin over their antlers. Now, in order to do this, they rub their antlers up against trees to help them shed the velvet. These rubs can be seen long after the fact, and basically the deer has just rubbed off a layer of bark on the tree, and it kind of looks like this. So you know that that was a deer. Now, that's all I've got for chews and rubs, so let's move on to things animals build. Okay, as far as things animals build, this can be a wide variety of things, from webs to cocoons to burrows. Fun fact, you can distinguish who built what burrow, but it's actually very complicated, and it takes a lot of practice to get good at it. But regardless, if you see a burrow, something probably lives in it, and therefore you should not stick your hand in it. Now, other things that things build are going to be like beaver dams. So if you're near water and you notice a lot of beaver activity, like those pointed trunks of trees that have been chopped down, you know that there might be a dam nearby. This dam is going to be built from leaves and twigs and sticks, and it's usually going to be where they've stopped the flow of water in a river. Now, fun fact, a beaver male built his dam to impress a female to be his mate. Now, she chooses whether or not she likes his decorating style, and then if she does, they move in together in the dam. Another fun fact is that they keep gathering leaves and twigs and trunks of trees and things like that even after they've built their dam. And they take these and they store them in deeper water below their dam to be preserved throughout the winter as a food source. This is kind of like their refrigerator. Fun fact, huh? Now, another thing that animals build are nests. Birds build nests. Even squirrels build nests. And some nests, you know whose they are, like this hummingbird nest. It's cup-shaped, it's beautiful, it was delicately built, and it's very small. Other nests, it's harder to tell, and this is where your field guide comes in really handy. If you see a nest and you want to know who built it, use your field guide, use an app on your phone, Google it. It takes a long time to memorize all the different kinds of nests, and even I haven't done that. So definitely utilize things like your field guide. Now, that's all we've got for things animals build. Let's move on to the fun one. Things animals leave behind. Now, this can be feathers from birds, snake sheds, or even things like antlers when the male deer drop them. But what we're really talking about here is scat. Yes, today on Wandering Wild, we're going to be talking about animal poop. So scat is actually a really good indicator of what animals are in your area, and scientists even use it to determine what the animals are eating. But we're going to just talk about some of the basic scat you may see and how to know exactly what it probably came from. Now, if you're looking at kind of long, tube-shaped, dark scat, that probably came from something like a coyote or a skunk or a bear or things like that. Now, if you see small square brick-shaped scat, that kind of looks like a charcoal brick, that came from a wild hog. Now, if the end of the scat is kind of teardropped in shaped, that came from a cat, be it a house cat, a cougar, or a bobcat. Now, if you see small little perfectly round pellets, that came from a rabbit. Similar to a deer's dropping, which though not perfectly round is more jelly bean or raisinette shaped. I know I just ruined those candies for you. That's how you tell the difference between deer scat and rabbit scat. Rabbit, perfectly round, deer, more oblong. But the important thing is if you do find scat, go ahead, look at it, determine what you think it came from. But it's important that you don't touch it. Some animals, especially like raccoons, carry diseases that can be transmitted to humans, so you don't want to mess with their scat. Plus, it's gross, so just don't do it. I hope you enjoyed learning all about animal sign here today on Wandering Wild. Here's a fun fact for you. This is the second time I've done this video. The first time, my camera stopped recording. Now, I hope you enjoyed it, and as always, if you have questions, put them down here in the comments, and my sources are found in the description box below. Now, I have a quick little question for y'all. I've been thinking about interesting videos that I can put in to kind of change it up every week. I'm still going to do Misunderstood Mondays, Wild Wednesdays, Forgotten Fridays. Those aren't going away. But sometimes I think it might be interesting if we kind of changed it up a little bit. So I've been thinking about some videos like DIY videos, like how to build your own bird feeder, or make a bird feeder out of a pine cone, or even how to get molds from tracks. So you can use plaster in a track to get kind of a mold for yourself as a keepsake. These are all things that can be done really easily, and you could do them at home. So I could film a video kind of as a how-to DIY for these things. If you like that idea, please let me know down in the comments below so that I can kind of plan and see what we can do. But if you have any other ideas of a video you'd like to see or an animal you'd like to hear about, also tell me down in the comments below. I love hearing from you guys. So as always, stay wild and never stop wondering.